Hey guys, and welcome to the 10th episode of the Trinisphere. I am hosting tonight. You're welcome. I'm Ryan the Spike. I'm here with
Shannon the Timmy.
And
Adam the Johnny.
Yeah, that's those guys. Sorry. Anyways, so for tonight's episode, we are going to be talking about the 2017 Commander Precons, and we'll also be talking about the Precon weekly league changes that we do in our Precon leagues. And we'll also be talking about some post-league brews using the new commanders. As always, thank you to Tapped Out for our generous support. And we will also be doing a special giveaway of a booster pack to one of our one of our subscribers. All right, we're going to move on here with the 2017 Commander deck list. And first on the list today is going to be Feline Ferocity, Green-White Cats. We're going to be talking about these decks straight out the box, and let's shoot this over to Shannon real quick and see what he has to say about these lovely kitties.
Yeah, so we got ourselves Cat Tribal, which was not really, it's something a little surprising. We were expecting some pretty standard ones, but this one's pretty unique. But this deck is a little, compared to the others, a little lacking imagination. It's basically your standard Voltron deck. It has a Voltron-based commander that fetches equipment, has some pretty high efficiency attackers, and the rest of the list has got a decent amount of equipment, and basically your general like ramp control package that could be based around that. So I am not a big fan of this list. I may actually be playing it for our league, which is just because everyone else in our league chose to not play it, so somebody had to rep it. So I'll see if I can maybe come up with a different brew for it. But out of the box, this is not my favorite. It has my favorite commander out of it is Miri, Weatherlight Duelist, because she's aggressive and she's kind of controlly with her mechanics. And it has some interesting equipment, but other than that, it doesn't really appeal to me normally.
Yeah, you said not a lot of imagination. I'm going to have to disagree because cats you control have protection from rats, sir.
Oh yes, there is one unique card out of the whole bunch.
I love that
yes.
card.
What? There's a Notion Thief.
So you're gonna.
There is a Notion Thief.
That one is actually pretty cool.
Super
That's
cool.
probably the only card out of the deck that I actually like.
I like that one, but I'm saying then there's also that stupid cat that's like when it enters the battlefield, pick an opponent that. Right?
No, that card sucks.
No, it's terrible. But I'm saying it's creative. Hunter? It's creative.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like some of the cards are actually pretty decent for Cat Tribal. Kasali Slingers is essentially like an Aura Shards, but only for cats.
I actually think that card's pretty solid.
Yeah,
because it's the same mana cost as the Naturalist, right?
Yeah,
and that only does it once, and this does it for cats, right. And it's got reach.
Exactly, and Alms Collector is very good, being the Notion Thief-esque card. It's not quite as good as Notion Thief.
Better stats.
Yeah, but it is good. Like Shannon said, some of the equipment is pretty cool. We have the new Bloodforged Battle Axe, which is pretty interesting. It's a bone splitter that replicates itself, essentially.
Yeah. Every time the Akushi deals combat damage to a player, it replicates itself. Pretty neat.
Yeah, which is really interesting. A few cards that kind of could use reprints, and Miri getting a first try is pretty alright. I agree with you overall power wise, though. I'm not super into this deck. I don't think it's that strong, but I mean, it has a few board wipes in it. It has a little bit of ramp. It's kind of got a little bit of everything, but I think overall it's probably not that strong straight out of the box.
I mean, overall, I will have to agree. I mean, personally, I know we're not trying to jump the gun here, but I don't think all of the commanders are all that great out of the box, but I think that's kind of just something that they do every year in and out. I will say, though, that I think this deck does have potential on just like a very fast start when it comes to the commander decks. I've looked at the curve of this deck, and there's a lot of 2s and 3 cats.
Yeah.
And if you go 2, 3, 4 cat, and
right.
you're playing the, what is his name, Nazan? Is that the guy that has Eminence?
Yeah,
he has Eminence.
No, it's Arab. I can't even know how to pronounce it. But the Eminence one, Arabo.
I'm sorry. Yeah. But having that Eminence ability, giving your what is it? Your Fleece main line +3/+3, bashing for 6 on turn 3. I mean, it doesn't sound like the greatest, but that's definitely a beating every turn.
Yeah.
And then like. I don't know. I feel like the deck does have potential, and I feel like it has a go wide strat.
Yeah, I think if you would want to capitalize on that, you'd actually try and smush down that curve down to the low end and start dropping some of these bigger dudes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And going for a really fast aggro deck to try and knock out a player pretty much before they could even stabilize.
Yeah.
You'd back that up with control, like targeted removal. So when they do try and stabilize, you're able to spot remove things so you can keep getting in there. So this deck just, it attacks. That's what it does. So it's not exciting. It doesn't have a whole lot of, unique builds to it. It'll be an aggressive, low to the ground, Voltron style deck through and throughout.
Very linear path.
Yeah.
Yes, agreed.
All right. Well, I think that wraps up our feline ferocity.
Yep.
And we're going to go ahead and move on to Vampiric Bloodlust. And this is the deck that I will be playing.
Yeah.
I've been actually looking for Mardu General for a while. And personally, I think just based off, the list itself, it has a lot to work with when it comes to out-of-a-box deck. It's got a lot of really nice removal spells. It's got some hand disruption for your opponents. It's got some Blood Artist effects. I don't know. I just feel like overall this deck has a lot to offer. And it's in a very powerful color scheme where you have the best removal spells of all time.
I think if you're big on like kind of the aggro removal package, this is definitely a pretty good deck. There's some pretty high costed things in here that I think you probably don't want, like Bloodlord of Vazgoth or whatever that guy is, and stuff like that. But I like all of the commanders. Mathis is really cool. Edgar Markov is amazing to just help you go wide and keep, making your stuff get bigger. Even Leisha is cool if you want to do a life gain type strategy, and some decent reprints too. Dark Imposter.
We got Black Market.
Yeah, Black Market, Blood Baron of Vizkopa.
Captivating Vampire needed a reprint.
Yep, that was a really good one.
I'm a little disappointed that there's no Sengir Vampire in here. Anybody else? No.
No, you know what I wanted to see?
Vein Drinker, who I think is a slight upgrade, but it's kind of sad.
I wanted to see Nirkana Revenant in this deck.
Yeah, that's another card that needs reprint.
That needed a reprint.
Yeah,
it's very expensive for a casual
they
card.
gave you Anwan the Rune Sage instead, so sorry.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were thinking, honestly.
I think this is one of the better of the four decks out the box. I think this is probably number 2, and it fights for number 1 against the Dragons from what I've seen in a couple of these pre-con pre-releases that we've seen.
Yeah.
Like they said, it's strong. That Eminence ability on Edgar is probably the best one in my opinion. Getting free bodies. Don't even have to pay mana to do it. You're just incidentally getting guys. And then of course, a lot of the strategy here is pumping all of your guys. So having a free extra 4 guys when you go to swing seems pretty good.
Right.
It has a really good creature-based removal package. So even though this is aggro, kind of like the cats, and these kind of almost share the same space, this one uses creatures to make the other creatures better, whereas the other one uses equipment to try and make their creatures better. So obviously this one will kind of tend to fare better because those bodies are always more versatile than equipment when they're not attached to things. They also have like strong removal like Drana and Dark Imposter here. Captivating Vampire. I will enjoy watching someone steal somebody else's dragon with that. And you have great anthem effects like Stromkirk Captain. You don't have that one that flips the top card and makes it into a vampire and
Vampire Nocturnus.
Yeah, I don't think that is in here.
He's actually okay. So that card's okay, I think.
Oh, but it requires it to be black.
It has to be a black card, so that's the one problem.
Yeah.
Out of curiosity, Adam, what is your favorite new card from this deck?
My favorite new card from this deck. It's really tough to choose just one, but I am a fan of Bloodsworn Steward. I really liked the white one. Oh God, what was that called?
Bastion Protector.
Bastion Protector. Yeah, I really liked that. I thought that was great for a commander. I like this guy too. Pumps up your commander, gives it haste. Plus, it's a 4/4 flyer for 4. Overall, pretty decent.
It also that's the mono red guy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. No. What's really cool is I actually really like those effects because they're specifically saying commander creatures you control. So the Bastion Protector is really cool because you get +2/+2 indestructible. This one gives haste.
Right.
What's really cool though is both those cards get to go directly into that what was her name, Kylia, the giant.
Yeah.
I feel like it's just perfect for her.
Calamity.
Yeah. It's that's just amazing for both these cards are. So it's like they are almost like second thought,
Well, they also work really great with last year's stuff because the partners both get buffed by it.
Yeah, it's true. That's really
And then I think I've seen one of your decks actually steal other people's commanders. So then if you do gain control of somebody else's commander, it's still a commander creature.
Yep.
Not so great for giving it haste, but much better when it's giving it indestructible. Yeah, I agree that Bloodsworn Stewards is an amazing card, and you'll see a lot of play in EDH.
Yeah.
What about you, Shannon? Any favorite new card out of this deck? Or no?
Yeah, it's going to be Bloodsworn Steward, but also I'm a pretty big fan of... I'm a really big fan of this Teferi's Protection card. I think this is going to be changing a lot of Magic around here. It does it all. This card's insane. So this thing is a 3-mana instant that says until your next turn, your life total can't change. You have protection from everything, and all your permanents phase out.
Counterspell?
I mean, what are you naming an answer to the card?
Yes, that's all I'm doing.
Oh, okay.
I'm doing what everybody does. The dies to removal.
Okay. Anyways, so this card's pretty insane. It pretty much stops. It pretty much stops you from like losing the game. This card protects all your permanents. I think it's going to see a lot of play. And interesting enough, they actually changed the phase out to allow your tokens to survive being phased out.
They did a rat of
They
that.
did a rules change.
They did.
Yeah. So pretty interesting seeing that card come back. I know Teferi is something from some old Magic lore. So it's pretty cool seeing him again.
That's actually one of the most expensive cards in out of all 4 decks because it's so sought after right now.
Yeah.
So my favorite card from this deck, the new one, is New Blood. That card's insane.
That card's very cool.
mono black, no downside, mind control.
Yeah.
Thanks for the dude. So I feel like this deck is actually going to have, like, this card alone combats the Dragon's deck because you just take something.
Yep.
So it's like they have to have some sort of instant speed answer, that kind of thing. But yeah, that's my favorite card from the Vampire deck. Now we'll be moving on to the third deck, which is Draconic Domination. I'm going to throw this one to Shannon because I feel like this is just like boiling his blood right now.
Oh, man. I'm loving this deck. This Dragon deck is everything a Timmy could possibly want. I've watched the 2 pre-releases. One was by Commander Versus, and the other was by Game Nights. Both times the Dragon deck came out strong and dominated the game. You just have so many cool cards in here that you would probably put into a Dragon deck. You have a lot of legendary dragons up and down this list. Even a Niv Mizzet is in there.
There's so many. I mean, I would say almost half the dragons are legendary.
Half the dragons are legendary. So like if you want to collect some dragons, if you're Timmy and you're trying to build your collection, you should just pick this thing up right now and you're getting a ton of not elder dragons, but pretty much elder dragons.
You're getting some value for your collection for sure.
I think it's important to note that the reason why our resident Timmy is not playing the dragon deck is because so many other people in our pod, or in our play group, wanted to play it, that we were really just trying to balance out the play group.
I think out of our dozen or so players, I think 4 or so of them are going to be playing dragons. So a little bit of a larger showing for that. I think it's a good deck. I know there's a lot of worries out there about the mana distribution, but I have faith. I did doubt the 4-color commander mana base, but they did a very good job with those. So I'm excited to see this one in action too. Yeah,
that one, the 4-color ones changed me to the point where this might not be a good mana base. I have no idea, but I'm certainly not going to say anything bad about it until I see it in action.
Yeah,
because I was proven so wrong about the 4-color ones. I did not think that they were going to have enough fixing. This deck seems, pretty straightforward to me. Like, I think the early game is going to be a little bit of a struggle for it. So if they get completely aggroed out in the early game, that's where it's going to be a little bit weak. But other than that, once you hit the late game and start just dropping dragons, they're going to drop every single turn. There's just going to be nothing but threat after threat after threat. It's going to be really hard to fight off.
I would have to agree with that. I think I watched a little bit of gameplay from this Dragons deck and or all decks overall, and it was very interesting because this deck is just gonna snowball once it hits like 7-8 mana. It's just every single turn you're gonna get hit. You're just gonna get hit with a bigger dude every single time.
Absolutely.
And there's not much stopping it unless someone plays into a Wrath and you just take advantage of their hand. Notable card for me from this deck for sure is Kindred Discovery. I kind of like that card. I misread it the first time I saw it,
right?
So I thought it was much worse. But this specifically says whenever it enters the battlefield and whenever it attacks. So you're talking about any kind of flicker deck wants this.
Oh God, I misread that.
Yes,
and attacks.
Yes,
it's a really good draw engine.
I'm saying like
it's one of the better ones.
This is immediately going into a Slivers deck.
Yes.
Yeah, this is immediately going into anything with blue. You know what I'm saying? It's just any like It's just such a powerful card. Even for 5 mana, like you play this, then you swing out with your team, you draw that many cards. That's
a lot.
That's pretty good.
Yeah.
I mean, there's not much things that can answer it at that point either. So, what about you, Adam? Do you have any pet cards from this new Printle cards?
Probably my favorite one out of the set is Ramos, Dragon Engine.
He's powerful. Trying to door to nothing to someone.
I'm pausing for Shannon. You want me to pick it up?
No, you can take it.
Okay.
I'll take, I guess, Scalar Reckoner.
That's what I thought you were going to go with. That's what,
Yeah, that's fine. Go for it.
All right. So, my favorite is definitely Ramos Dragon Engine. He's a 4/4 for 6 with flying, whatever. When he gets counters on him, but man, there have got to be, and I haven't explored them all yet, but there have got to be ways to just break this guy wide open and just flicker him so you can keep removing counters and putting counters on and getting all the mana, and door to nothingness or whatever you want, or just cast a Progenitus off of it, which is pretty sweet too. What about you, Shannon? What is your
man
from this deck?
I mean, it was gonna be Ramos, and then you got a showery one with his awesome value. So I guess
Adam is now the shark.
Zoink. So I'll go back to my my second favorite out of this set, which this deck, which would be Fractured Identity. So this is a new sorcery for 5 mana. It says exile target non-land permanent, then each player other than its controller creates a token that's a copy of it. So this card basically says, wow, that's a really powerful card you have over there that you've been abusing everyone in this pod with. Now guess what? Each of your enemies now has a copy of that, and you don't. So that Iona is going to name all of your colors, and everyone now has an Iona. Or something along those lines. It's notable that it's any kind of non-land permanent, so you could probably use this in another abusive manner to exile kind of those detrimental style enchantments that like Zedru would try and give to other players. You could basically just exile your own detrimental enchantment and then to give all of your opponents a copy of that enchantment. It has a little bit of versatility, but also it has that fun politics and pod balancing effect of taking an abusive card and giving it to each other player.
Yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to seeing that play out. I feel like a lot of people are going to play it right, and a lot of people are going to play it wrong, and either scenario is going to be really interesting.
Yeah.
Every time the spell is played, it's actually going to be good.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like somebody's going to get hosed, and like some people that you didn't intend to.
I'm already picturing this going really bad for our play group.
Yes.
Oh yeah. The game may end pretty much after a Fractured Identity is cast. Like people will just be like, oh well, I can't cast spells, or this game's over, and scooping. I don't know. We'll see how it goes.
Yep.
Only time will tell, and we will let you know. Trust us. All right. So up next, our last deck of the night is going to be Arcane Wizardry. This is a Grixis Wizard deck, and I'm going to pass this one off to Adam because I feel like this is something a little up your boat.
Yeah, up my boat, he says.
Up your river? I don't know. Your boat works too.
So, yeah, this is actually the one that I am going to be piloting in our league. I think that overall, I was pretty disappointed. I don't think that it's actually very strong out of the box. There are individual cards that are very strong in it, but I think overall that this is the weakest deck. I think this ends up losing to Cats also. It's got a lot of wizards, but there's so many wizards throughout Magic that are just better than what it's got going on. We got reprints of a couple decent things.
Got your Azami in here, which is nice.
Yeah, I mean, it has 3 of the curses that I'm not actually interested in any of. Actually, all 4 enchantments are just bad, in my opinion. It's got some interesting cards to it, but overall, I am not a huge fan. But I'm hoping to be able to turn it into something cool. Yeah,
so I think one of the issues with this is it has some pretty interesting commanders, but the problem is they all do kind of their own unique thing. One is kind of a graveyard-centric recasting instance. Another is trying to assemble activated abilities.
Yep.
And the third is simply using Eminence to try and create copies to trigger ETBs or attacks. Wizards aren't really known for attacking, so if you're focusing on the ETB effect, there's not a whole lot of ETBs in this deck. So they have a lot of really cool mechanics, but unfortunately the deck itself is split too thin across those 3 mechanics, so it makes for kind of a bad out of the box style deck. It has a lot of potential, but out of the box, this is probably the weakest of all four. And if you're to go against the other ones without a really nice control-based hand, you are probably going to get thrashed pretty badly. So this is one I'm going to keep my eye on as this league progresses. Hopefully it'll be, some people will be doing some pretty interesting things with it. But out of the box, I would not recommend trying to compete against some of these other guys.
No, this deck, most certainly, in my opinion, is the weakest out of the box. Out of the box for sure. However, I will say that I think this deck actually has the highest ceiling when it comes to full build deck.
I agree. I mean, I think potential-wise,
it's Grixis Wizards, dude.
Like out of the box. I mean, if you're somebody who's, I guess if you're looking at it from, you're gonna buy these and you play casually with your friends and you're just gonna build these and you're just gonna play them straight out of the box. I can't recommend that you get the Wizard one.
No, I would strongly not do that.
Yeah.
Just not. But yeah, I will say my notable mention of this new printing, or of a new printed card, would probably be Vindictive Lich.
Mm.
I know that card's like, what is it? I think it's 5 mana for
Four
mana for a 4/1.
Yeah.
I just think it's like a funny card. It does 3 things. So if you start recurring this, you're gonna start affecting the board pretty bad. That's what I like. And then you also got yourself the reprint of Havoc Lich and Marchesa the Black Rose, which is kind of cool.
Yeah, some decent reprints. Nothing amazing. But
some powerful Magic cards. I love Puppeteer Click. I think that's gonna go ahead and wrap up our out of the box review of these decks for the night.
Do you want us to do our picks for this deck? We could do that too. Did you throw it to us for our picks?
No.
And your pick for a new card would be, Shannon?
I'm a big fan of the Galecaster Colossus. It's nice. 7 mana, 5/6. It says tap an untapped wizard you control. Return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. Notable that is he taps the wizard. The wizard does not get an ability to tap, which means you can tap wizards that just came into play to bounce things. This guy is pretty sweet for controlling the board. This is the one piece that might make a deck swing in your favor out of the box. If you can get this guy down and keep him alive, you can control that board a little bit better. He's pretty sweet. He may see some play in some other decks as kind of a control-y blue creature on the top of the curve. What about you, Adam?
Yeah, but he doesn't bounce lands.
So Adam's no-go because, spot removal Adam.
That's true.
No, he's no bueno.
Yeah.
No bueno. No. I think Galecaster Colossus is a really interesting design for a card. My choice for one, though, is Tygam Sidisi's Hand. I think that he is a fantastic design, basically from beginning to end. He is definitely going in your Sidisi Dredge decks, if you've got anything like that going. He's got removal on him, he's got card selection on him, he's got filling your graveyard, everything that you want to do. Not an amazing body per casting cost, but the abilities more than make up for it.
I'd recommend if you're going to try and brew Tygam Sidisi's Hand, look for all those cards that do things on the draw step, because he flat out causes you to skip a draw step.
Yeah.
So if certain cards maybe skip your draw step to punish you, this guy works fantastic with that card because he was already going to skip your draw step. So you can kind of brew in that kind of area. I was starting to look into that and finding some pretty unique stuff.
Yeah, what is it, Marilyn the Morning Song or something?
Yeah, so now you get to draw and tutor, or you get to basically tutor twice.
Exactly.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool. I think that's going to wrap up our out of the box decks for the night. And now we're going to move on to our weekly changes. Bro, it's fucking cats. Just add more cats. If you don't say Brimaz at least once. You ready? Are we recording right now?
Yeah.
Oh shit, it's my bad. All right, and now we're moving on to weekly changes, and this is how we're going to talk about what the direction we're going to take our own decks in, kind of from a short term to a long term perspective. And to kick it off, I think I'm going to throw it to Adam and talk about what he plans on doing with those crappy out of the box wizards.
Yeah, you got the biggest hill to climb there, buddy.
Yeah, it's true. I think that I'm going to have a real tough time for the first few weeks, to be perfectly honest.
Probably the first three to four, honestly.
Yeah, I mean, it may be. So the plan that I had, the short-term plan is make it more about spells in general and take a lot of wizards out.
So a spells matter deck?
Yeah, it's gonna be a Spellslinger deck. I'm probably also gonna take out the curses fairly early on. Not necessarily the draw card one, but some of the other ones, and just take out some of it. Like, it's a spell, but I'm never gonna play Clone Legion. Like, it's just
so who are you playing? Which general? Kess?
So week 1, I'm probably gonna play in Inalia, the one that's like
Eminence.
the Eminence one, right?
Yes.
But it is going to switch to Kess, yes.
Okay, so eventually you just be the Spellslinger.
Exactly.
I got
you. Yeah. I mean, what I'm aiming it toward in the final iteration of it is going to be a Kess Storm deck. You get the 3 best, the 3 Storm colors that count.
Yeah, that's true.
And so being able to Storm plus recast something during your turn, like get kind of
some extra value.
Some of that Snapcaster-y type stuff. Snapcaster will be going in here also.
Week 1.
It might be a week 1 change, yeah. But yeah, basically just adding a lot of cantrippy stuff so that I can just draw into more stuff and storm off is basically the overall concept that I'm going for. What about you, Shan?
Oh, so for Cats, which is the deck I'll be playing.
You don't sound very happy
excited.
about this.
No enthusiasm.
So excited. I feel like this is Saskia all over again.
They're little kitties.
Are you in a dark room by yourself right now? Because you sound sad.
Well, buy the ticket, take the ride. So I will be playing Cats, and I will be doing my best to pilot this thing to try and get in the trophy snag here. So I think for my short-term goal, it may sound kind of disingenuous or kind of obvious that I'm going to be trying to win a lot in the first couple of weeks. I feel like this deck will be strongest in the early part of the tournament or the league, able to sneak out some wins early on, but as the other decks start firing, this thing pretty much hits its ceiling really fast.
Yeah.
So what I'm going to probably try and do in the first couple of weeks is optimize this to be as fast as possible and try and get as many kills as I can before other decks come online. And then from there, I think later in the league, I'll be focusing on doing a generic kind of like high efficiency Voltron package, with your a lot of tutor effects and some decent swords. It'll probably become pretty normalized by then. Everyone will know what to expect. But I think my best chance of getting a lot of points in this league will be trying to sneak out some wins in the first couple of weeks of the gameplay. So we'll see. I'll probably be using either a mixture of Arabo or Miri early on, and then focus entirely on Miri late game with maybe some more control effects. I'll be swapping out some of these enchantments and sorceries that aren't quite as good for high efficiency removal to try and disrupt other people's combos while dealing with big flyy dragons, which will be the hardest part. Yeah. I think maybe one of my week 1 changes, depending on how bad dragons stomp everyone, may be Sandworm Convergence, and so we'll see how that pans out.
That's an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah, not so high efficiency, but not being able to be attacked by dragons seems like a high upside for me.
Right. I mean, I think that Miri at the helm makes a lot of sense for that too, because at least you're only getting hit with 1 dragon. I mean, even though the Dragon is a 10/10, so it's not a whole lot of mitigation, but still.
Yep.
Nice.
Yeah, I can see where you're going with that. I mean, you the only way you might sneak out a trophy here is if you do take a couple nice pods out of the way early on. I do believe that late game, once we open it up to like 35 plus changes, the Cats will fall far behind.
Yeah, I don't expect to be able to hang late in the tournament.
So are vampires going to take it home with the Well of Lost Dreams?
No.
Oh.
Okay, so that's the thing is I'm just gonna go straight into Edgar. I believe that we've all learned from the past, as in Oloro, learning that effects that are in the command zone that no one can interact with are just too powerful in some cases. And I think Edgar had just the 0 mana cost of just being able to play a vampire on cast and get a 1/1.
Yeah.
That effect is just so strong. You're getting a body, and not only is it just a body, it's a vampire specifically.
Yeah.
And him alone being a 6 mana 4/4 that just anthems all those 1/1s that you made before you even cast him is just going to be super, super powerful. I'm going to look into adding early on some mana acceleration, maybe throw in Necrona Revenant. I know I talked about that earlier, but that's a solid vampire add. Probably a Drana, the newer one, the one that the first strike.
Liberator.
Yeah, I put a 1/1 counter on all my guys. She almost always connects because she's a 2/3 flyer first strike. So and then the special effect of her connecting before they do and pumps all of them. And the cool thing about this deck that I think is actually going to give it that little bit of reach that kind of surpasses having to deal with the dragons is it has a lot of Blood Artist effects.
Yeah.
And those effects are extremely powerful when it comes to, trying to get in that last, 8 points of damage. And then, you're not immune to board wipes, but it's pretty powerful. Probably going to start off by cutting some of the weird instants and sorceries that are kind of irrelevant. May even...
No Disrupt Decorum for you?
No. Sorry. Probably the removal package is fine. I'll probably up that. Maybe first week I'll probably put in a couple of those, maybe a couple of vampires, that kind of thing. Get rid of some of the enchantments, most likely the curses, and then maybe add a draw spell or something. Because that's the one thing is I see a problem with this deck is that you're probably going to play 3 or 4 vampires and then have no hand, and then hope that your general sticks.
You got to get that Skull Clamp out. Turn all those Edgar Eminence tokens into sweet draw juice.
That's pretty powerful.
So here's the real question.
What's the real question?
Do you take Sanguine Bond out, or do you put, God, what is it called?
Exquisite Blood.
Exquisite Blood in.
In it to win it.
Do you create the combo, or do you?
I feel like the first 3 weeks you could just go all in on that combo.
Might as well win some cheese games before people put in enchantment removal.
You could just cheese.
If you put in 4 tutors and Exquisite Blood, you probably just win every game.
You probably would, yeah. I mean, all you do is hit for 1 or sack something to Blood Artist, I think, or it just turns into a cheap win.
But make it fun. Make your tutors gamble.
Or I'll just play.
I'll discard it every time.
But yeah, I think so that's gonna wrap up our. I'm not playing gamble.
We can talk about that third one, or we can generally talk about the last one. So there's also Draconic Domination, which is one we aren't playing. But what do you guys think that's gonna play in the short term into the league, and in the long term? What would be the long term goals for this kind of deck?
I think that this one is going to be the one that changes the least, to be perfectly honest. This one, I mean, it basically comes stacked with dragons, and it wants to cast dragons. And yeah, there's a few better dragons and more high efficiency dragons that you can add in here, but it pretty much has the cards that it wants to have in here.
Yeah, so you think that players are generally going to stick with a dragon theme?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I think some of the enchantments, like Elemental Bond, isn't that great. You could probably take that out. Crucible of Fire is just the Win Morist of cards. Yes, new term, Win Morist.
Win Morist.
I can imagine in the short term they'll be playing ways to cheat these dragons into play really quickly. I think Sneak Attack and all its ilk will be coming out and dropping dragons a little faster than normal.
What's that? Cryptic Gateway could be a thing they do. The Dragon Arch. Isn't that put a multicolored creature to play?
There's the portal.
Yep.
Belby's
Portal.
Belby's portal. Yeah.
So, Quicksilver Amulet.
Quicksilver Amulet.
So that might be the extent of their changes. But I'm hoping some of the people that are going to be piling this deck are going to focus more on the Ramos Dragon Engine. So what do you guys think that kind of deck would look like short term, long term?
Oh God, short term, I think you're gonna have a real tough time actually making use of Ramos, and I think you just have to build toward the long term. In the long term, you end up morphing the entire deck around it. I mean that's almost a completely different build.
It's a build around it. It's 100%.
Exactly. You have to have lots of flicker effects. You have to have other ways of adding counters to him. You also have to change your win cons completely because when you're pumping out the kind of mana that Ramos is capable of pumping out in a turn, you need something to actually dump it into that's just going to win the game.
Right.
You don't want to spin your wheels and just have mana for.
So if you wouldn't recommend changing to Ramos early on, you wouldn't.
No. Wait till late. That's something that personally for Ramos, for me, that is something that I would not probably change until you said you can change the entire deck, and I would cut.
The way to the end.
No, and I would probably cut. Hold on 1 sec. I'd probably cut every single card except him almost. Maybe
just start over from scratch.
Yeah. No, it would seriously.
It would be a very different deck.
It would be a very different deck, and I talked about this when this card was unfortunately spoiled super, super, super early. And the way I would build this is a Spellslinger Storm deck, just because you have all those multicolored charms and effects that would put 2 counters, 3 counters for a spell at instant speed. Then you add 10 mana, and then you're now I cast all the other spells and continuously add the counters. It's just really good.
I think you should just go for Okagachi. No one play that card.
Please don't play that card.
No one.
You mean the 5-color politics deck?
Yeah.
I guess Corona's been the king?
He has to connect.
It's just.
It's so bad. And it depends on... You'd have to have, like, what, goblin diplomats to make people attack you? It's just...
Or bullwhip?
Well, I don't know what you're talking about. What's the problem with bullwhip?
All right.
You play it. That's the problem. All right, so I think that's going to go ahead and wrap up our segment on what we would change about our decks on a weekly basis from short to long term. And I believe now we'll be moving on to
what we're going to be doing with them, or what commanders we want to play outside the league.
And now we'll be moving on to what we'll be doing, or what we'll be playing once the league is over. What we can do with the commanders. All right, and now we're going to talk about what our plans are for the commanders from these new decks after the league is won by me.
Good luck.
No, it's my time to reign, guys.
Sorry. I hope so.
Me too.
Maybe we'll make it in the next podcast of champions.
That's messed up, man.
Wow.
All right.
Deep cuts.
Moving on before I cry. Adam, what would you be interested in playing after this league's over, just for funs?
So I think just out of novelty, I'm kind of interested in Balin Wandering Knight.
Leonin? Oh, Knight? Okay.
Yeah. Balin Wandering Knight. I think he looks like a pretty interesting, Voltron commander. There's a ton of Voltron commanders out there. Obviously Rafik is probably the strongest. I think if you're going straight equipment, he's probably going to have haste as soon as he comes out, because you're gonna probably want to cast this guy on 6 so that you can use his last ability to attach all your equipment. So you just build a little tiny army and protect yourself and things with a whole bunch of little swords and greaves and things like that. You play this guy out on 6, attach all your equipment to him. He's got Shroud, he's got haste, he's got pro, all these different things, and then you swing out for just massive damage. I think that he's going to be really interesting. I mean, he does get double strike when he has 2 equipment attached to him, so he's probably going to do fairly well. Mono white, not always the best, but this gives mono white an interesting option. Yeah, and I think better than Kama.
I can agree. I feel like this is a solid, not necessarily replacement, but definitely a solid competitor with Coda, or is that his name? The dog?
Oh. No.
Kondu?
Isamaru,
that one. I don't remember. I don't know what I'm talking about.
Damn, you almost made a whole episode with me having to edit out a huge chunk of your dialogue. Go again.
Oh, wait, are you talking...
Or we can move on. I mean, either or.
Yeah, just move on.
So yeah, I've been working on kind of a Voltron funsy budget list for another kind of format, and I did notice that whenever you're able to cheat the equip costs of things can get out of hand really fast. So I do like his, Pure Steel Paladin making a equip cost 0. Him basically for 2 mana, literally equipping everything to himself. Seems like it could suddenly get out of hand real fast.
Right.
So it'll be interesting to see him
and
play.
He's clearly in the best color you can do Voltron fairly easily. I mean, you got Stoneforge, Stonehewer, Sigarda's Aid, Pure Steel Paladin, like you mentioned. Yeah. There's so many easy adds to this, some more budget than others.
Enlightened Tutor,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So what about you, Shannon? Which one are you actually interested in building after all is said and done?
So, I'm not a big fan of Voltron. I'm kind of already bemoaning. I'm becoming quite the complainer, bemoaning my deck in this league already, and I haven't even started playing with it yet. But I've come up with a new way to build Voltron that doesn't require pesky equipment to be attached to things, and that is via this new commander called Marisil the Pretender. So I'm a huge fan of this guy. What he does is when he enters a battlefield, you can exile a artifact or a creature card from your hand or graveyard and put a cage counter on it. And then he has the activated abilities of all cards you own in exile with cage counters on them. That means if he were to die and come back, the ones he has previously exiled in his previous existences still count towards his ability. And his ability is, being able to activate all of those makes for quite an interesting set of skills. So I'm thinking this is my kind of take on Voltron. Instead of attaching equipment to him, I am going to have activated abilities stockpiled up in the exile zone to try and make for some really cool interactions. It's also notable that Marisol can be crewed, and he can be equipped to things. Now, neither of those actually do anything, but it's pretty funny to think that if you have like a smuggler's copter exiled, you can try and crew Marisol by tapping your guys. Or if you have a sword for whatever reason exiled, you can pay mana to try and equip him to things. But there's a ton of other interactions. You put training grounds out to reduce them, and then you're starting to be able to tap for extra mana and use Basalt Monolith's untap ability on the cheap. You can do a ton of things with this guy, and I was always a huge fan of Necrotic Ooze. I always try to get Necrotic Ooze to work, but as soon as people started to see you get out of hand, they would exile your graveyard. Well, this guy puts all of his stuff in the exile zone, which basically cannot be interacted with by your opponents, so they can kind of watch in horror as you start to assemble like the zaniest turns and combos possible. I don't plan on going infinite with him, but I plan on doing some lengthy turns that make people roll their eyes.
Yeah.
Dirtle Fest.
MVP in this deck, Aetherling.
Oh man, anything that can flicker him. So yeah, Aetherling, awesome. Argent Sphinx, I think it is, giving him 1 blue to flicker, so you can just start exiling tons and tons and tons of stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, it's a very interesting take on a commander. I think it's very versatile, and I think I like that he gets to keep all the abilities even after he's died.
That's a huge
makes
thing.
him very powerful because
He's a great design. I really like this
He
design.
seems like they took kind of like what they were thinking with Jaleva, the Scourge of
Nephalia.
Nephalia's Scourge, and they saw that her weakness was I hate to say it, dies to removal, and you just lose basically all those effects before you could try and swing and get value out of them. So they decided to make something that can survive from life to life.
Yeah, which I think is an extremely powerful effect. My direction I intend on taking things is also a unique commander. Mathis, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Mardu
Politics.
Mardu Politics, yeah. I just really like the fact that he doesn't have to connect to get his effect. You get to play him on 3. He's a 3/3 with menace, so he can get in on some planeswalkers that are down early. And at the end of your turn, you can put bounty counters on any creature to basically give the effect that bounty counters say whenever this creature dies, each of that creature's controllers opponents would draw a card and gain 2 life. Now, this may look at negative value because you're giving even some of your opponents that, but they also look at you as almost an ally. So it's like this weird Mardu like group hug slug deck, which I think is the way I would take it. I think I would take it with some ghostly prison effects. You get some very powerful enchantments in this. Plus, you get to play. I mean, come on, you get to play Sun Titan, Inferno Titan,
Mardu
and Grave Titan.
And then you got your Noxious Gear Hulk,
your Noxious Gear Hulk, Cataclysmic Gear Hulk. Combustible Gear Hulk. Let's just go with all the cycles.
I feel like anytime you start with a deck, you go, okay, the Titan and the Gear Hulk go in, and then maybe the Praetor. Okay, now what does the deck actually do now? Let me figure that out.
Oh, yeah. I've already stuck all the good stuff in. Let's just, all right, now the rest of it's removal. We're good. No, I also like this guy because all those incept triggers, all those bounty counters, it's got the clause that even if he's not around, just like your general, that you can still gain the effect. It's still good. So I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of games I can squeeze out by having the control of bounty counters.
Cutest card ever to put in it? Bounty Hunter. Tap to destroy target creature with a bounty counter on it.
Yep.
Isn't it like a 4-mana 2/2?
Yeah.
Yeah. From forever ago?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Weatherlight.
Super old. Of course he would know all about that card.
What a surprise. But yeah, that's the direction I think I want to go after all this. Plus, I'll already have taken the time to put together some Mardu cards for the league itself, so it won't be that difficult to transition into an effective list.
Nice. If you guys have any clue on what you guys are planning on brewing, let us know. We're interested in some cool deck lists based on these new commanders.
Yeah, absolutely. Sure.
Post them.
I love comments. But yeah, so I think that's going to wrap up this section for the night. We're going to move on to our outro. And a huge thanks to our sponsor, TappedOut.net, where you can find all of our deck lists. On YouTube, like, share, and subscribe to get all of the notifications, and don't forget to click that bell. We're also doing a giveaway, and just so you're aware, the only way to enter is if you do subscribe. We will be giving away a single pack of standard legal Magic cards. You can find us on the web at trinisphere.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Adam can be found on Twitter as Squire9999 and Tapped Out as Squire1. Ryan, that's me, can be found on Twitter at Snapmaster and Tapped Out as I'm Ryan Reese. Shannon can be found out on Twitter and Tapped Out as Nikki Bolus. And as always, stay winning, my friends.